Alrighty, so I'm going to record this video that's here again, and then I will replace the video here with the one I'm recording, because in hindsight, I realized the step, and it's a really important step that I messed up on in this video. So let me just start from the beginning. So hopefully this is the only one you'll watch. I should almost leave the other one out there for what not to do. So this link I've given you is really good because it walks you through the basic concepts. How does it work? What the URL becomes, how you can connect your own domains. These are all good things to do, but really, here are the steps. Install the Firebase CLI, set up a project, which again, we should all have because of the work we've done with the Udemy course, and then deploy the site. Okay, so really the last one's optional if you want, but those are required. So what you can do here is to install the CLI. It's pretty simple. And it gives you, which is great here, all three major operating systems. And in this case, because I'm using my Mac OS, that's what I'll be doing. But you can, and just be careful when you scroll through here, make sure by default it's on standalone binary, which you can totally get and install, but npm to me, with all of its wobbles, whatever, still a good tool. So you would take this and you'd copy that or type it and come into your command line. Now, in this case, because you're installing this tool globally, you don't have to be in your dev directory, but I'm just showing you from there. And then you can just do that. Now, I've already done it, so I don't have to. So if you have any issues with that step, right, it shouldn't be. But again, we'll have to do a little troubleshooting if you do in that case. So now once you do that, the next step is actually just to run. And by the way, these are all just the different ways to do it. Now you run Firebase Login. Okay, so now that that's finished, you do Firebase Login. Now and it'll tell me I'm already logged in, but this is where you'll have to go through login as with your Gmail. And for me, I have second factor authentication, so you'll need to do that. If you have any issues, the one issue I ran into was I ended up having to do this command instead on my Linux side. So if you run into any issues, check that. So we're actually almost there, right? So now we do the Firebase init, and this is where, and I can go ahead and run it even though I have before. And this is going to bring up this little interface, and I'm just going to make this a little bigger so you can see it here for Firebase. So you can use your arrow keys, right, to go around in different options. So of course we're going to be doing, this video is just for hosting. You know that we've talked about the database, the Firestore, which I've been using in my projects, but for hosting, you just go to the option you want, you hit spacebar, and you can see, hopefully you can see that selects it. You hit enter. And so what it's going to do, it's going to ask you some questions. In the first video, this is the mistake I did, because it says, do you want to use your public directory? Well, in our case, the public directory is actually not what you want to use, because this is what React uses. So don't use that. So what I'm going to do, and this is what I recommend, is using a directory called build, which I will show you in a minute how to actually have your code optimized for that into that directory from the command line. So I'm going to say, no, I don't want you to use public, because public's kind of the standard. That's why it's asking you. I want to use build. Okay, and now in this case, I'm going to say no. I don't want, you can configure it as a single page app, but I ended up doing no here. Do you want to overwrite the 404 that exists? And I went ahead and put yes. Already exists, overwrite, yes. And then boom, I'm done. Okay. So if you have any challenges there, the only thing you might want to do, because there's really only a yes or no, you could go back and run it, and you can run this Firebase init multiple times to set that up. But it also just creates a Firebase JSON file that you can go look at as well. Let's see, is it here? So the Firebase. Now that's the project. Sorry, I'm just looking around. Ignore files. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong about that part, but let me go ahead and clear. So now, boom, we're done. Just to show you, well, last step, but just to show you over on the Firebase console side is one thing, because I've already done my deployment. When you go into your project, whatever project you've set up, right? You can set up a new one just for this one, and that might be kind of nice because you can name it what your project is. It's something I could have done here. So under here, remember, you have all these options and you click on hosting. And because I've already deployed, you can see that I have information that's going to be different than the first time you go in there. And the first time, basically, all it's going to give you is some, basically those setup instructions. And then once you deploy, you get this. Okay, so I just want to tell you, and that stuff is pretty much, I think, are similar to what we're looking at over here on the Firebase CLI. Cool. All right, so now if we're going through and following our instructions, the last thing it says, yeah, see, that's what I was looking at, was the firebase.json file. Okay, so there's some other things that if you go through and do that it will set up, and then you can do some specific project related things. But what I want to do is actually our last part here. And before we get there, you can, and this is good to do, serve up, meaning what you have ready to deploy. But when we're ready to deploy, here's the step, right? So ready to deploy, boom, that's all we have to do. But before we do that, we actually need to place all of our, have React do a optimization step. So what you do is, and I used to run npm build, and then I realized I'm getting this error. So you just run npm run script. It used to be build, but so what this is going to do, it's going to take my code base that I have, and it is going to create an optimized production build, which is great. And it's going to do it in that build directory. It doesn't take very long. It's pretty fast. And one thing you can do is you can actually just do serve, which means basically run, because it's taken your entire project and placed it into this directory, okay, with static assets and the whole thing. So now the last step is actually just to run Firebase Deploy. Let me actually clear, okay? Clear. So Firebase Deploy. So what this is going to do is, because I've already told it to look in that build directory, right? And you can see 19 files were found in build. Boom, it put it all up there. And then this is my URL that I can just go to and open, and then I will see my app loading there. Okay, so I'm glad I did the second one, because like I said, the step that I missed, I realized in hindsight, was way important. And it took me just a few minutes to figure out, because it was erroring out on my index file. And that's because it was overwriting what was in my public directory. And of course, React needs that piece. So it's like, oh no, you can't do that. And the way I figured it out is I came in here and realized there was a lot of this Firebase stuff in here, and that's not what I wanted. So FYI, just don't do that. And then what you can do is, after you've deployed once and you've looked at your setup, by the way, you can see when refresh this, so you can then make changes. If you have changes, then deploy again, of course. So this one was done right now, 21 files. They've obviously added a couple because it said 19 locally, and here's 21. All right, I hope that helps you out. Talk to you soon. Bye.